Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges. Joining us today, two-time Olympian for Argentina. She is a 12-time Argentine champion. She's a national record holder, 100 and 200 breasts. She was an All-American for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And now she is DC United's Director of Mental Performance and Culture. Today, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Agustina de Giovanni. How's it going, Agus?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of what I'm sure is a very busy schedule to sit down and have a chat with us about high performance and athletics, the highest level. So let's just get down to it. Everyone wants to know how you perform at the highest level, what the secret code is, both mentally and physically. You have what I think is a really great philosophy about this. So to start off, to give our listeners an idea of what you do on a day-to-day basis and how you do it, can you just give us your philosophy on what the key is to high performance? I know that's a big question, but especially the mind-body connection and how you juggle that in your day-to-day.
Right. Like you said, it's a big question, but if I can say some things that we work on every day, is understanding that whoever you ask, how many athletes that come to my office or even want to have the sessions through Zoom, I ask them how much or how important the mind is when you have to perform. They tell you more than 90%. Some of them, they say 100%, some they say 85%. And actually, we spend less than 10% of the time in training the mind. So the way we're trying to approach it is I call it the mental gym, because we take the mind as a muscle. We train the mind exactly like we go to the dry land or you do some like lifting weights or things like that, understanding that the mind is that important. And the more you know, information is power. And the more you know about yourself and how your mind works, how it works under pressure, how it works when you are way too tired to think during practice because you have been swimming for 6 hours or been running for so long, or we competing in like the heat. The summer is really hot here. So we're trying to understand that the more you get to know yourself, the better you're going to perform. And there is no way around of working hard. Working hard is a part of it, and adding to your routine the importance of taking the time and putting yourself out there to work on the mind side, I think is one of the key of our work.
So I think we've seen mental health become a huge emphasis across our entire country, across our culture, but certainly within sports and high performance as well, because we're realizing that the mental side of it is so important, and it's a muscle you train just like the rest of the body, right? And so if you're sitting down with an athlete for the first time, or you're getting to know an athlete, how do you start that training process, and what are you looking for from their side, and what are you doing to help them along that process of training the mind?
First, depending on if somebody sent them or if they're actually there because they want to, because sometimes coaches like, just go see Agus. That's it. There's no choice, and I understand, and I have to, try to see what they are trying to, why they're here, because I don't believe in I have to force you to work with me. If you don't believe it, I could show you how I work, but at the end of the day, if you don't believe it, then there is not much of a point of working together. Same thing as if you don't believe on, I don't know, doing weights or stretching or things like that, then you're not going to do it, or it's not going to work for you. So the first, when I sit down with people that actually want to be there, I try to understand first. I think is, even though the technique is almost the same, I think we are different. And I like my job is understanding that we are all different and we work in different ways and we react different ways because we're human beings first before being an athlete. And we have a history. And even if I work with foreigners like me, or if I work with, depending on which sport. So I think I do take that into account. And then I start asking questions where I need to understand where he or she wants to go and where she or he is standing today, and try to work that gap, and try to make a plan to close that gap as much as we can and as fast as we can through hard work. So he or she can achieve whatever he wants in the mindset. Does it make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So from your end, again, kind of breaking it down a little further on a day-to-day basis, is it just talking, right? Is it just kind of this back and forth dialogue, or are there actual exercises that you have your athletes doing for the mental side as well as for the physical side?
No. We do more, exercises or direct activities where, of course, first of all, I need to know, again, where they're coming from, what they want and their goals, and then trying to, for them to understand how important it is they work from Monday through Friday for them to perform on Saturday. It's particularly in soccer that I work on. We play on Saturday, we play on Sunday, and understanding that whatever you do Monday through Friday is going to be reflected in your performance on Saturday instead of all the way around. Sometimes it's nobody's fault, but nobody taught us that whatever we do when we perform is a result of the process, and it sounds really simple or easy, but it's not something really common in the world of high performance. So when they understand that having intentional training is really important, that's one of the first exercises we do, is understanding that you have to have goals every day from yourself. Like, for example, in a group, it's different from swimming. We are more used to think about ourselves, because it's an individual sport. Of course, we hear our coaches what they want. If we work speed training one day, if it's recovering or threshold or everything, they tell us what to do. But we know, for example, I was a breaststroker, so I wanted to work on my kicking. I wanted to float better. So I did have naturally, without realizing, personal goals. However, in group sports, especially, that is not that common. They are used to say, okay, everybody has to follow the coach, which is fine, but they don't have the intentional training. So when I mean intentional training, said, okay, what do you want to achieve in this practice? What do you want? Understanding that you have the power to control what we can control, and try to have your own goal besides your coach's. It doesn't mean that your coach's goal is not important. It's very important, but also you as a personal athlete, like, for example, today he might be playing for DC United, but tomorrow he wants to go to Europe or go to South America, and to do that he needs to do certain things. And when he understands that first he's an individual, and as long as he's well and he's performing well, the team is going to perform well too. So understanding that part, so they go and say, okay, you have today a goal, and then go get it, and then tell me how it is. And sometimes they forget, because the mind is is everywhere, and they're not used to it. So let me see if I have it here. We have, for example, wristband. Well, this is in Spanish, but it means process. And the other one that says MIT, which is the most important task. There are things that we put it on, every day, and we have a goal, and we write it down here. So when they go to practice, except for goalkeepers, that they have to wear gloves, they have it here and they write it down. Like I do write it down too. So every day you do have at least one goal. So whenever they are training and they forget about it, but at least your mind is seeing this, then they remember. So they try to incorporate certain things for them afterwards to have more automatic process, and they remember what to do. I know I did it way too long, but I tried to explain how it works from understanding from being an individual athlete in a group sport.
Absolutely. That was a great explanation. Very appreciative for that. I've got lots of follow-ups. First off, what is an example of a goal that you personally might set, being the director of mental performance and culture on this team? What kind of goals are you setting on a day-to-day basis?
For the athletes, for example, depending on the role in the field, defenders, attackers, midfielders, understanding what coaches want you to perform on Saturday. Sometimes either it's too many things or not too detailed things. So they actually know they have to run, and they don't know they have to go right, but exactly how, when do you have to walk, when you have to wait. So there are things that might seem simple, but again, what's simple usually is not easy. So I have to tell them first to go back and say, what happened Saturday? What are the things that you would like to get better? Because we do have a reflection part, which is short, but an important part where you have to reflect on what we did. What usually we call it the 33% forgotten part, where you plan 33%, you perform 33%, but usually you don't reflect when we have on a schedule as busy as we do. Sometimes we play Wednesday, Saturday, and getting into that rhythm, then you have to forget and try to move forward, or what the only thing you remember is your mistakes, are your mistakes, which for your confidence is not always the best thing. So we try to make it as reflection and not, hey, I did everything wrong or things like that. So one of the goals will be like that. Hey, what did you reflect on? And what would you like to do better on Saturday, and write it down. Sometimes it's to communicate better, Sometimes it is to try to hit the ball in certain way. Sometimes in soccer it's called the second ball. So specific things that they have to perform better for the next match.
So speaking of, you're obviously talking soccer lingo, and
let's go swimming.
Well, so I'm curious how you got here, right? You're working with the DC United professional soccer team. You have such a rich swimming background. How did that transition come about for you?
Well, I started working with swimmers, of course. I did work with swimmers until the Tokyo Olympics, and I would love to. I still work with some swimmers on the side. I don't only work with the United athletes, but in the afternoon I also work with athletes around the world, and some of them are swimmers. It's just something that it was organically just developed. I come from Argentina, where soccer is like a religion. It's the most important thing you can have, and we all sort of know the soccer world. And it's just I met with one of the coaches, and he was interested in my work. He knew some athletes that I've been working on in Europe, and also one of the Olympic swimmers that I work on in Europe. And that's how we started. And I said, yes, why not? I do believe that only staying in swimming was going to be my comfort zone. And I wanted to, get more a broad experience, and also getting into a group sport. So I am working on swimming too. I cannot do it because it's my love, but that's why I said yes to the soccer world.
Yeah. So let's get a little bit of background info on you as an athlete. I am really curious about, how would you describe your mental state when you were an athlete? Were you practicing a lot of these things that you're now teaching as an athlete, or did you have to, learn them yourself during your career or after your career?
I think, I cannot be too objective because I love swimming. So I try to be as I'm not applying my love into swimming, and try to be realistic. But I do think swimming is one of the best sports in a sense that it makes you develop certain skills without you even being conscious since you're little. We work on routines and habits, and work on discipline, work on self-control. Some things that I have to teach some of these professional athletes, worldwide athletes, and that for us, for swimming, I have to talk for myself. That was normal, because we start swimming at 4:30 or 5 in the morning when we are 12, when we're 11, when we go to school. I was back in Argentina with them, and swimming is not as popular sport there, and there are not many swimming pools, so we had to drive a lot, and the swimming pools are not heated up, so winter was terrible. Things that in countries like that happen. So you do develop resilience. You did have to develop certain skills to perform. On the other hand, if I have to tell you, I didn't have all the skills that today I teach. I wish I did. I think that's also one of the reasons why I started working in this mental performance, because I feel like I wish I had it and I didn't know. I don't blame anyone but myself, or but my upbringing, or but whatever. It's not a blaming thing, but I don't think I had it all, and I wish I had, because there are certain things where your focus, your awareness, your certain things that you control what you can control, that we work on so much today, sometimes by being young, or I came to Alabama when I was 19, not knowing English, so I had so many things between myself and the performance that sometimes you learn, but it wasn't the ideal environment, the ideal for me to perform. So I can tell you, yes, I had a lot of things, but I also miss a lot of things. That's why now I want to make sure that I can help as many people as I can.
Yeah. So if you had one aspect or, one quality of the things that you teach now, if you could have one of those things as an athlete, is there one that you would choose to have?
You mean that I didn't have, or that I had?
That you didn't have. Yes.
Until I got to Alabama, I did not understand the importance of the process over the outcome. I learned from Nick Saban. After that, I became a big football fan. So I learned from him. But until then, it was more about forcing things. And even though I trained very well, I didn't miss any practice. I understood that your progress goes hand to hand to your preparation. And you need certain amount of time to see some results. I wasn't aware of the importance of understanding how the process plays a big role, and you get so much into I had to drop a second, I have to do this, I have to do some certain cuts, that I think that was one of my weaknesses. I became obsessed on timing instead of saying, okay, you know what, hold on. I learned that my junior and senior year in Alabama.
So I have to ask, did you ever get to talk to Nick Saban?
Just hi, how are you? And just very short. We used to go to the same church, so that's when I was closer to him, his wife and stuff like that. But then didn't the every day we used to. Back then we shared the gym, and his strength coach used to coach us.
You had the same strength coach as the football team?
Well, the Olympians did, like Coach Cochran and
okay.
Yes,
Gotcha.
the other one, TJ. Those two were very important to us, and I still I learned a little lot from them, especially in summertime when everybody was gone. And I used to be a big I like to learn, so I used to go there and spend time. I didn't have anything to do. I didn't know many people, so I was just a big fan of sports.
Yeah. So in terms of high performance, obviously the higher you get, the more pressure there is to perform. And we were talking the other day about how it's much more becoming just, how you react in the moment. Like you said, preparation is a big part. And I think there's so many athletes that put in the work and that prepare, but then it's kind of like whoever's on that day. Right. And which builds pressure. Especially in our sport, if it's a high profile meet like World Championships, Olympics, NCAAs. So I'm curious on your take of how you prepare athletes for those high pressure situations, just dealing with pressure generally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is a huge part of being a professional or a high performance athlete. Are there certain, things that you do to address just general pressure at that highest level?
Yeah, we work on trying to understand and we train it one day at a time, and how important it is, how you take one day. Of course, this is obviously, but one day makes a week, weeks, months are a great year, right? So we go back to, we even use an app that it's called Habit Share, where you, depending on your goal, like we talked at the beginning, what is your goal, where you are today, and that's the gap. And we plan to close that gap. By closing that gap, we need to plan what we do every day, right? And for me to be in my best version, I have to get up certain time. I have to, like, even today that I'm not an athlete anymore like I used to be, I still have to swim, I still have to work out for me to be the best mental coach that I could, or my best version today, Thursday, so going back to the athletes, understanding that, I know it's a cliche thing, but living in the present, being here, and understanding that today is the same as tomorrow, and it's going to be the same as the day after, because the most important thing is your effort that you're putting on. We try to understand in the process over outcome means that if you want to judge your practice, to be judged by your effort, if you're putting 100% effort instead of the results, because sometimes you have no control. Usually you have no control of the results, but you do have control of what you do about it, right? So I understand, like for swimming, it's one shot sometimes, just to give the ACAT for some countries, for the United States, going to trials and things like that. And it feels like it's one time, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute and a half. And like try to take that, again, what you do Monday to Friday is going to replicate what you do Saturday or whenever you swim. So try to take the days are always the same, and understanding that you're not only a swimmer, and the life, like take life as a part of it. Like, sorry, it's sports, it's a part of your life and not all the way around. So having perspective and trying to do the drone, we call it, we're getting up ourselves in a drone or a helicopter to watch what's going on and try to get detached from the moment and then take it perspective and understanding the importance of it, but not the excessive importance of it. Doesn't define you. Doesn't define you as a person either, if you make the cut or not. I know it sounds very philosophical, but the athletes like that, and they feel they are in a safe environment where, because one of the things that I think for my weakness of my weak point when I was an athlete was my performance defined me. So it was really hard for me to do the retirement, because it was it was who I was, right? It defined me. So then without the sport, it was really hard, that transition. Thank God I went to college and had a degree, right? Not all the athletes do that. So it's even harder retirement. So going back to the performance, understanding the real importance of that event, and taking the days are always the same, that are as important, because the most important is you, right? And what you do, what you put on it. And if you are used to giving 100% of whatever you do, then they're supposed to be the same. I know it sounds easy to say, it's hard to apply, but if you practice it, it's not as hard as it sounds.
It's not as hard as it sounds. Easier said than done.
Yeah, so contradictory.
No, yeah. So we were also talking on our news podcast the other day about the pressures that social media brings, obviously, which is just blown up in the last decade, right? And I'm sure that's affected your job and how you do your job. And I'm curious if it just what you've noticed about how social media affects the athletes, affects high performance, and what kind of pressure that adds or maybe subtracts from the athletes that you're working with.
No, I think it adds it if you don't know how to handle it. Before, when I used to race, I didn't have that pressure. So I didn't have to do that. But now, where that gap of people reaching you is none. Anyone can get in touch with you on Twitter or Instagram or whatever you use. So I think that pressure is, if you don't know how to handle it, can actually damage your performance big time, because even though you might not know who is talking about you, still it hurts to read or to hear that they're talking certain things about you. And that's not cool. And if you're not trained, and if you are not aware, if you're not controlling what you are going to choose to let in or out, that's another thing that we train. Then you're always going to be affected by it. So I think it adds a lot of pressure. And even though we train and we control it, you still have to train to don't get affected by it. So you have to develop a tool, which is great. You get better. You always continue learning. However, I think it's the negative part of social media that it comes with it.
Yeah. And so to follow up on that, how would you guide athletes to train for handling the social media aspect or the pressure that specifically social media can bring when you're focusing on high performance or when you're at a big competition?
Yeah, well, first of all, if it's one day meet or match, if it's soccer, if it's in swimming, don't get into social media first. Second, if you are training long enough to don't be affected by it, then just try not to read. Just choose, because what happened with social media or anything that comes from outside, you're not choosing it, right? And you are, quote unquote, a victim of it. Because when you're not choosing it, you're affected by something that you are not aware is coming, then you're impacted by it. You're going to get hurt somehow. Or, if you don't know, I'm going to tell you something, or I'm going to say something, you're not prepared, I'm going to hurt you. And even though I don't want to hurt you, I might hurt you because I'm saying things in a way that you don't like it, because I don't know you enough. So try to understand that social media needs to, even though everybody uses this and we think, since everybody uses it, it's like something that is harmless. No, it is not, because again, even though you might control who is in your Instagram account, for example, or something like that, you don't choose what they write. And trying to manage how much time you spend in social media on what you are going to do before races, I think it's important, because even though we train not to get affected by it, when you're closer to a meet, we are more sensitive, you're more vulnerable, because you're getting more anxious and your focus differs. So I try for them to avoid as much as they can and get surrounded by those who actually want the best of you, and they know you well enough to know what to say, what not to say closer to the race.
So going back to your career, you competed in 2 Olympics. From your first to your second games, what do you feel like you learned, just from going to one, coming into your second? Did you feel more prepared? Did you feel less prepared? Mentally, were you able to reach a new level having that second experience?
Mm-hmm. Of course. Also, there's another variable there. When you're coming from a country like we are coming, South America, or not as developed countries, you have another thing to think about, that it is being in an environment like an Olympic. And of course, even for Americans, might be something huge, but the Olympic Village, for someone that is coming from a small town where there's not even swimming pool, so the pools are not even heated, or sometimes you have some animal, swimming in the pool. From that, I was 18 or 17, 18 when I went there. From that to Athens, that after that, Alabama, compared to the campus of Alabama, and compared to the Athens and the Olympic Village or the infrastructure, it was sort of similar. So if I would have gone to Alabama before Athens, then the shock wouldn't have been as much. But going from my hometown, not knowing English, and it was overwhelming for somebody. It wasn't only the swimming part. It's a cultural thing that it's hard to understand now because I've been here for so many years, and you get used to this country is great. And for everything in sports, you have so many things that, of course, we take it for granted, but it's not normal in the rest of the world. So I had that to tell you the truth. So in Athens, I was all the time like in shock, and I couldn't communicate only with my teammates or my country because we speak Spanish and not English. So in the swimming part, of course, I didn't have much international experience. In Argentina, our international experience going to Brazil, which is like 2 hours flight away. Now it's, the world seems smaller, but back then it's not. It's only 20 years ago, but it wasn't that easy to travel. And the second Olympics, of course, even though the infrastructure was awesome, Beijing, everything was great and way different from Athens. I had spent already 4 years in Alabama. I went to school there. I knew more people. The language was totally different because I could get around by myself and not depending in other ones. So, of course, in that sense, as an experience was much easier. And of course, by swimming in NCAAs, swimming in NCAAs for 4 years in a row before the Olympics helps you a lot. Talking about that pressure on performing in high level because, America has great swimming system. So I think, of course, from one to the next, it was a huge difference.
Which totally makes sense. And I'm guessing just going to a games your first time and your second time is a big difference. But I was curious your take on it. I'm curious just about your career in general. When you think back to swimming, do you have memories that stand out the most to you, or do you have a favorite swimming story or a favorite meet that you ever attended?
Stories. Oof. I don't know. I just have such a great memory from my experience in Alabama that I will have to tell you my whole college career there. Of course, stories, not knowing the language. I only knew the written part to take the SAT to go into Alabama, which I didn't know there was an accent. And so I didn't understand anything at all. Good thing that it was swimming, that you don't have to talk, you just have to swim. So the only part that I felt at home was in a pool, and my coach, which is great, she's still a great swimming coach. She was Australian, so she also had an accent. So I was totally lost. So she had to write things down, which is perfect because it's number. So I didn't have to do any effort about that. But then it took me, I used to go to class because, you have to go to class to be a part of the grade because you had to have a good GPA and things like that. But no clue what they were saying. No clue what they were saying, and with the accent, and I didn't know an accent existed. So that was a whole adventure of just staying in there. And sometimes they will say, come in the afternoon for someone to make up an exam that I did take the exam. And I thought we all had to go in the afternoon. So I had to change my whole swimming schedule to go in the afternoon. And I went there and they told me, no, you don't have to be here. You already came in the morning. So very embarrassing things for not understanding the language. It happened a lot in my freshman year. I was very embarrassed the whole year until it's just let go. Because you have an accent. I was very embarrassed to talk because I have a really thick accent. And I only knew numbers, colors, and things like that. And then, the team was really great. And then you started to develop your community and things like that. But stories for swimming, I don't know, not understanding the training. Sometimes they'll say, I don't know, go swimming, fly, or some drills and fly, and also in breaststroke, very embarrassing things, things like that. I don't know. I'm sure I'll remember some stories when we stopped talking, but I don't know. I think I had great memories from Alabama.
Did you have a favorite set that you ever did, or a hardest set?
Of course, the 100, when you do the training trip, the 31st of December, the last training of the year. I don't think I had to do it because that morning, some people didn't show up to practice, so they did 100, but we did like 80 It's the same thing. 80, 100 is a lot. But then a lot of, the 16,400, I did that in when I was in Argentina. I used to train with like long distance. The people I used to swim open water in Argentina it's more common than pool, but I love it. Like when I went to Alabama, I swam the mile and things like that. I used to love to swim long distance. I wasn't great, but I like to swim freestyle. And it helped me for my 200 breaststroke. So it was great. But a lot of IM, we did do like, it was like 12,400 IM. That for me was a lot, for a breaststroker. Yeah. And I think a lot of the sets, my mind, that's just disappeared. I don't think I want to remember, so I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of underwater things too, but you get to like the underwater.
Why did you like training distance?
Because I like swimming. Because, I love being in the water. Even today, some people that they say, okay, I swam for 15 years, so many hours a day. I don't want to see a pool ever again. Mm-hmm. I feel I'm so lucky that I'm not like that. And it's not wrong that they think like that. I totally understand. It's not like I'm swimming 5 hours a day. So after an hour, something is kind of boring. I was like, how did I swim so long? Because it's also the group and the competition and the winning and things like that. But I just liked my body naturally. The more I swim, the more into the rhythm that it gets. So I couldn't sprint. The 100, I didn't understand it. I just couldn't do it. I'm too tall. I don't know. I'm not coordinated. But the more I swim, the better I feel. I need to feel really great. So I just swim long distance. Even today, I just put my snorkel on and I swim nonstop. And it's my meditation technique.
That sounds like a great meditation.
Sport.
I mean, that's really heartwarming to hear that you still have that kind of love for swimming after the yardage you put in, because like you said, a lot of athletes put in their time and then they're like, I'm never touching a pool again. Mm-hmm. Don't even like being in the water, which to me is really sad, because I think being in the water is like you said, such a great way to clear your head, get a little meditation, get some good mental health going. And
exactly, it's the mental health, and the body actually gets a lot of benefits from it. Your back, your legs, being in the water. Remember, I always tell them when you're a baby, you're in your mama's, with water there. So I think that's why it's also so important to go there, and I think it's very healing if you want to see it that way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But Agus, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and chat. It's been really great talking to you. Do you have any parting thoughts for our audience before we sign off today?
Thank you for the time, and thank you for making this a part of the mental health part, or mental training, or however people would like to name it, because there's a lot of myths or taboo things about the mental health, and then they say, oh, I'm not crazy, I don't have to work with you, I don't have any issues. Still, even though the good part of social media also is that people are speaking up, they're saying how important it is. So I think that help us to work or to break the barrier faster for us, for the professionals that work in mental health. But it's still a stigma where, if I see Agus means I have an issue, and I don't have an issue. I'm a great athlete, and trying to understand that this is nothing, that it doesn't define you as that you have an issue, or again, I can tell you what's the problem of having an issue. Like, we all have things to, and define me an issue, we'll have things to keep developing, and again, the higher you would like to go, also you have to understand that it's a price you pay as a human being, as a person. Your body pays a high price of high performance, that I think you to take care of yourself. If you love yourself enough, or it's a learning process also to love yourself enough to take care of yourself, because then you pay a high price by, we train a lot. And again, we are not born to train a lot. And understanding that is awesome. Do you train? You like to train? Good for you. And it's nothing against that. But thank you for making this a more normal, a more common topic for everyone to say. The stronger I get in the mind doesn't mean that today I'm weak. Means I'm strong today. I can get stronger, and then I can build tools not only for my swimming career, soccer career, rugby career, any career you want to, but for the benefit of who surround yourself with every day. Either your partner, maybe they have a lot of athletes that are parents, and I'm glad they come here and we try to fix things or talk about things or get better in things. So when they go home, they can enjoy their children and they don't have to deal with those things. I think there's a place and time for everything, and people are understanding more and more than spending. Again, it's not a lot. You don't have to spend an hour. We call it, we do a little, a lot instead of a lot, a little. And if you do a little, then you're fine. The mind works in very mysterious and beautiful ways. So thank you for making me a part of this. And I hope we keep helping and making people realize that they are way more precious and important than they think they are. And the answers, they have it inside, and then it's not a cliche thing. It's actually, when you do it, you realize that you have tools, and you just have to remind yourself, because when you train high performance, you have so many things they have to juggle, that if you have that help of like pushing you, helping you push you further, you don't have limits.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.